please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi, a very good morning. You're watching Trading Hour on CNBC TV18. I'm Ekta Batra and my co-anchor Prashant Nair will be joining us very soon. Well, for the markets, it's turning out to be a day of consolidation, you'd have to say. So 10,436 is currently where we're at. The important thing is that we're above our 50-day moving average of around 10,425 and we are just about close to the 100-day moving average of 10,440. So let's see whether we manage to get there virtually already at those levels. In terms of the Bank Nifty, it's recovered from the underperformance that we've seen for the Bank Nifty. So just down around 28 odd points at this point in time. The Nifty PSU Bank still underperforming and has underperformed as compared to the Nifty Bank on a week-to-date basis as well. Lot of stocks in focus. So, for example, oil marketing companies still under pressure this morning. We have the Bank Nifty, like I mentioned, and other stocks such as Dr. Reddy's, which is under pressure, along with HCL Tech, TCS, Infosys, all of them which are gaining on account of a weaker rupee. Hi, Prashant.
Ekta, hi. Good morning. So it's a nothing kind of a day, right? I mean, 15 odd points, not really. And there's no real support or disappointment coming in from the region. I mean, Asia, or you look at the US futures, for example, the early indications are that that's also going to be pretty flat. I think there's about a 0.25% gain. But Asia is all in the red, mostly in the red. I mean, so 15 points is all we've got on the Nifty here, 10,432. But there is enough happening as far as stocks go, and that's where the focus, I guess, is going to be with trades. Sudarshan Sukhani of S2Analytics.com is with us on the show as always. Sudarshan, morning. Thanks very much. Your sense on the Nifty, whether we'll see any biggish move today at all, or is going to remain small? And what would you do with stocks?
Yeah, good morning again. My sense is that the Nifty is, after 3 days of consolidation, is now willing to go higher. We have seen a pattern of higher highs, higher lows in the Nifty. Also, a similar pattern is available in the S&P 500, the US index, in spite of yesterday's decline. So all said and done, I am upbeat on the index, finally crossing that hump of 430, 440, 10,430, 440. So the suggestion has been since the morning to be long in the Nifty and just wait patiently for the market to show its hand.
Okay. All right, Sudarshan, morning. What are the stocks you'd be recommending?
Well, it's primarily mid caps and all on the buy side. I don't think we should be selling this market in case a breakout does happen. So Britannia is our first buying opportunity. That stock is an outperformer and will continue to be so in the FMCG sector and in the broad market. Consider buying Britannia. Biocon is backed by news as well as excellent chart patterns. So Biocon is the second buy. That's also is something you can trade for the day and also carry forward the position for a few days. And finally, we have Tech Mahindra from the IT pack. We are buying in anticipation of Infosys results. But I think that should be okay because charts do suggest that IT stocks have more upside left. So focus on the Nifty as a long position, consider buying mid caps.
Fair enough. We will get some questions to you. And the first one is coming from Nilesh, who wants to know which stock out of the following three is a good bet for the short term. So this is Voltas, Motherson Sumi or Yes Bank. Trading essentially, Sudarshan, out of the three.
Yes, well, while all three could be good enough for the longer term, I think if he wants to trade for 1 month, perhaps Voltas is the most suitable of the three. So if you are looking at a 1 month trade, consider buying Voltas.
Okay, all right. We have one more. Sudarshan, Umang has 15 shares of Eicher Motors, which he's bought at 30,100. Wants to know the way forward on that one.
Well, in the very short term, Eicher Motors has a target of almost 31,600. So there's a lot of leg room, a lot of overhead room for other Eicher Motors stock to go up. So the short term view is hold on to your position, and at least for the month of April and maybe the beginning of May, and you could get something close to 31,600.
Okay, all right, Sudarshan, we'll let you go on that note. Thanks very much for joining and taking us through all of those strategies. We have more calls which are lined up with C. Rudramurthy of Vachna Investments. Rudramurthy, hi, thank you very much for joining in this morning. First, what's your call on the market as a whole?
See, last week I was very, very bullish, in fact, super bullish. I continue my bullish stance on this market. I told at least don't short this market if you don't want to buy last week. Same thing I'm telling even at current level. But however, having moved 450 points on Nifty from the lows, some profit booking or some small correction can happen, but that should be used as buying opportunity by positional trader. I am long on Nifty future and I advocate buying at every dips. I have a stop loss of 10,375 for an initial target of 10,480, and on Bank Nifty I am looking at targets of 25,250 with a stop loss of 24,850, and today having the expiry for Bank Nifty future, definitely selling puts, expecting no big downfall on Bank Nifty. One can definitely knock out all the premiums which are available in option. This is definitely a buy on every dips market.
Okay, your stocks, Rudramurthy, in terms of trades?
Yeah, I'm very, very bullish on technology as a sector at current levels for traders. For me, KPIT futures looks very, very positive. A lot of open interest addition is seen with positive rollover. Even delivery-based buying is seen in KPIT. This stock can move towards levels of 250 immediately. Have a stop loss of 225 for this long trade. Another tech stock which I'm picking is NIIT Technology. Again, this stock can move towards levels of 960 initially and can even cross 1000 for a medium term. Have a stop loss of 910 for this long call. And I have a last buy call on Exide which I have been recommending for a long time now. Yesterday, huge movement is seen in Exide, still long way to go. Look at targets of 265 on Exide with a stop loss of 235, and Raymond looks very, very positive for me even at current levels. Even though valuations are a bit expensive, these are stocks where you can bet, and quality always comes with value and it comes at a price.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to, Rudramurthy, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining in. We should actually get Ashmit on the phone line with us. Because, I mean, the flashes which were coming through at the bottom of the screen are pretty significant, not the stocks, but we had Justice Chalameshwar of the Supreme Court, the second senior most judge. I mean, he's one of the 4 judges who did that unprecedented press conference, you know, a couple of months back. So the background to this, the recent background to this is that yesterday we had a Supreme Court bench which heard a plea from a public individual, and the plea essentially was for the Supreme Court to evolve a system in terms of how cases are allocated to different benches. A bench essentially headed by Mr. Deepak Misra, who is the Chief Justice, essentially decided and said, rejected that plea and said that you know, the sole powers to do that rests with the Chief Justice of the court. So I mean, you know, that happened yesterday, and now we have Justice Chalameshwar, who's saying that I'm not going to hear a plea from Prashant Bhushan. I think, yeah, Prashant Bhushan's plea in terms of how the case allocation, etc., is going to happen. And the reason he's putting out explicitly is that I don't want a situation where my a situation where my orders are reversed in 24 hours. Will not deal with this case. It is a problem, you know, for everyone. So that is what is coming through. I think we should get Ashmit on this because this is coming in from what's happening at the Supreme Court of India, and it's got wide ramifications. Closely watched this entire issue. Ashmit is with us. Ashmit, morning. You know, I was just sort of giving our viewers the background on the latest sort of. Coming in from the Supreme Court, Justice Chalameshwar saying, I'm not going to hear this plea by Prashant Bhushan. This is the case allocation matter because I don't want my orders to be reversed again in 24 hours. What more do you have, Ashmit?
Well, this was Justice Chalameshwar refusing to hear Prashant Bhushan's application. Now, mind you, the concern that Prashant Bhushan expressed is that the registry, the Supreme Court registry, is refusing to accept a petition in the first place with respect to assignment of cases, and with respect to that, he had moved Justice Chalameshwar's court. Now, Justice Chalameshwar came in with some very startling observations. Number one, he said that he's only got a few days left in office and that he's not interested, he's not keen on having his orders reversed, and that's the reason why he cannot hear this application by Prashant Bhushan. The referral to the 24-hour reversal has been the case that alleged corruption on part of the CJI, and that was one case where Justice Chalameshwar had directed for the matter to be heard by 5 senior-most judges of the Apex Court, only to have that order reversed by a CJI-led bench within 24 hours. So in reference to that, Justice Chalameshwar observing that he doesn't want his orders reversed. He also went on to observe that someone is carrying out a tirade against me, that he's looking to grab some office post-retirement. And then he further went on to say that he cannot deal with this case. This is a problem of the country. This is a problem of the institution. And it is for the institution and for the country to find a solution, not him. So that's the concern that he's expressed as of right now. Keep in mind that the issue at hand is over assignment of cases. Which cases are assigned to which benches of the Apex Court? That is the question at hand. Keep in mind that, in fact, just yesterday we had a judgment, a scathing judgment from the Apex Court, which had dismissed a similar application, saying that the CJI is the master of the roster. The assignment of cases is a power that rests exclusively with him, and that cannot be toyed with. There cannot be an assumption of mistrust, and that the CJI needs to be trusted with that power, and that the CJI in himself is an institution. That having been said, also keep in mind that just days back on April 7th, Justice Chalameshwar himself at a public gathering had in fact pointed out that Jayalalitha's disproportionate assets case is a classic example of how cases get assigned to preferred benches. So clearly an issue on which the last word hasn't been said yet. Prashant Bhushan is likely to take up this case before the CJI as well. Back to you.
Okay, all right, Ashmit. Thanks very much for that. So that is a story we'll keep updating our viewers on. But just want to focus back on the market and specific stocks now. Maybe Fortis should come up for you, because now that seems to be gaining a little bit more of steam. So up around 3.25% at the high point of the day for Fortis. We do understand from sources that there is that likely non-binding bid which has been submitted by IHH for Fortis. What we are waiting is basically the price which it's likely to have come in at, and how much higher it would probably be to the Manipal bid. But that's the news that we have been tracking very closely on Fortis at this point. That stock up around 3.3%.
Change 28 points on the Nifty. There is some pickup. I mean, when we started at 15 minutes back, we had about 15 odd points. So there's 10 points more, 14 points more from that level. The mid-cap index is flat. The Bank Nifty is down about 0.6% or so. Let's turn our attention to what's happening in the world of commodities. And I think the metal prices have come off a little bit. This morning, and that's impacting what's happening with stocks. Manisha is here with the entire roundup. Manisha, morning.
Thank you so much for that, Prashant. Well, yes, the metal prices have seen a very sharp decline, 1 to 3% down for many of them. But what we are focusing right now really is on the crude oil prices, because that continues to see strength, 7% up in this week, and it has been about the geopolitical concerns and also the kind of weakness in US dollar, the trade escalation wars that we have seen, a lot of things that have been happening in the global markets that have taken the crude oil prices to a 2014 highs. But joining us now to talk more about that is Paul Hicken, who's Associate Director, S&P Global Platts. Paul, hi, pleasure to have you on the show. What is your sense on how the crude oil prices really have been behaving, the kind of surge that we have seen coming in on that one in the last couple of weeks? What would you give the major reasons to?
There's two aspects, really. The first is the geopolitical risks, Syria. There's also the Houthi rebels in Yemen and the failed attacks on Saudi oil facilities there. And that is, which is a key shipping route, the Red Sea. And that's feeding into the risk premium in the market for oil. On the second side of things is what we've seen at the International Energy Forum with the OPEC ministers talking about the sort of push to really rebalance the market. We've got also, in the longer term regions, we've got Venezuela, which is oil production has collapsed there. They're from over 2 million barrels a day to below 1.5 million barrels a day. You've got risks around Iran, and production supply could be at risk there. And so there's two aspects, the fundamentals and the geopolitical risk side.
So what is your sense from here on? What would you want to watch more? Because geopolitical concerns, would you say, are for the near term right now, or do you see longer term implications of that?
I think the geopolitical risk is a much more near-term risk. The longer term is clearly fundamentals, demand as well. There's been a big demand growth recently, and that has also helped keep prices buoyed. And you've got to think it's a very bullish trend right now in the market.
So, Paul, what is your sense? I mean, you know, when we are looking at a stronger demand and geopolitical tensions, which are keeping the prices higher right now, and then there is this U.S. shale output number. We already are at 10.53 million barrels per day, 11.44 of an estimate here. How are you reading that number?
shale is booming, US production is booming, and that is offsetting those sort of bullish trends. But at the same time, you've got to remember that the risks are to a supply shortfall with OPEC really cutting supply out the market, really pushing ahead with rebalancing the market. The US production is actually only going to make up probably a lot of the demand growth in the market, and as a result that you've still got, it's a big sticking plaster for that supply shortfall, but it's still only a sticking plaster at the moment, and so that's the key theme at the moment.
Oh yes, Paul. You know, coming back to the demand side of it, and India is 1/3 of the global demand growth that we are looking at right now. You are in India. What have you been picking up? Where do you see the Indian consumption growth now moving on from here? And how do you look at the India as the dynamics in the global markets, really?
India has been crucial for supply. It had a bumpy 2017, but now it looks like demand growth is going to be very strong in India in this year. Platts Analytics forecasts 300,000 barrels a day demand growth for this year compared to 120,000 barrels a day last year, and that's going to absorb a lot of the supply. But one caveat to that is that as prices go up, that impinges on Indian demand, Indian consumption patterns, because as a result, retail prices are market linked, and that's a risk.
So what is your sense, Paul, going on from here in the light of fundamentals that we just discussed? What is your sense on the trajectory of the crude oil prices from here? Are you more bullish? Are we seeing more strength, more gains from these current levels?
For sure. I think you can't rule out. We've seen at $60 a barrel, there was a lot of support. We've reached $70 a barrel. There's been a lot of support. And while OPEC and Russia are so pushing this 1.8 million barrels a day production cut deal that $80 a barrel cannot be ruled out in the coming months.
So if we are talking about $80 a barrel in 2018 itself, how do you look at 2019? Because clearly crude is something that you always watch in a longer term trajectory. If we have to talk next 1 year, 3 years, where do we put the range in sense of prices?
Well, I think there's reluctance for starters from OPEC is going to look to consolidate its production cut deal in the long term, and that means a market management strategy going forward. Whether that means actually cutting further barrels, it will really depend on where those prices are at and how well the market is balanced. Because Saudi Energy Minister Khalid Al-Faleh has been keen to point out that looking for reasonable investment, reasonable long-term investment in the market and for reasonable prices. What that means, it's not really quite clear, but they clearly won't want too high prices. We won't want to see the beyond $100 a barrel because that's not good for producers or consumers. And at the same time, prices below $50 a barrel, again, no one wants to see a return to the sort of $30 a barrel range either. So it's a case of trying to keep that through the eye of the needle and prices around this sort of current range.
We get that, yes. We were right in between that. 75, 72 is where we're holding, so between 50 and 100, as you mentioned, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us. So that clearly is the view coming in from S&P Global, that $80 per barrel in this year not ruled out for crude.